Janelle Monae, hello.
Hi, how are you?
So good. Delighted to see you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Right. I would like to know the vision, please, behind the new album, Dirty Computer. When did it start in your head, the idea?
Well, I actually had this concept and this title before I did the Arcandroid, which was my first full-length album. So I sort of knew I needed to make this album. I also knew that I needed to live more and I need to have, more conversations and dialogues with myself, And so, in addition, I knew that this album would take a lot more vulnerability and honesty and digging deep. And I just don't think I was ready for that. I think having a muse like Cindy Mayweather and speaking not near future, but far off into the future with a concept that was Metropolis and the Arcandroid and the Electric Lady, an opportunity to not be uncomfortable with discussing, Janelle Monae. And I think this time around, because of the current events that are happening in the world, my evolution as a person, and what I felt like my responsibility is as an artist, I felt like this was the right time to make Dirty Computer, an album that deals with a lot of emotions. There were a lot of times that I would stop recording. I would be deeply upset, angry, living over in America and feeling like the people that I love and me were kind of pushed to the margins of society by the leader of the free world and that particular regime. There were times where I also had to channel that and really figure out, how do I make a celebratory album and a song that doesn't keep us reminded about the current state of events. With Dirty Computer, I wanted to make an album for all the dirty computers of the world, those who are told that they have bugs and viruses, that they need to fix themselves, that they need to clean themselves. Dirty computers see themselves not as a negative and see their bugs and viruses as negatives, but as attributes, as features, as characteristics that help make society great and inclusive for all. Great art comes when we're able to all come together with our differences wherever we're from, and I think that's where the magic happens. That's where the empathy happens. That's where you start understanding one another. Through understanding, you start liking each other, and through liking, you start uniting with one another. So here we are, Dirty Computer.
I'm really interested in the kind of breadth of your vision. You say you had the idea, the concept for this album before Arcandroid. What was the plan then? Did you kind of lay it all out? And the fact that you knew exactly what type of album you wanted this to be fascinates me, that you kind of had the foresight of these 3 albums. So what was the plan at the beginning?
Well, the plan was to work on Dirty Computer, but what ended up happening was I was an independent artist, and then I got a distribution deal shortly after I was selling my CDs out of the trunk of my car, living in a boarding house with 6 other girls, having my own album release parties. Wonderland Records was formed. We were very much so independent. I had just, got fired from Office Depot, so I was in a real underground independent state of mind, and I was writing this music that was really inspired by science fiction, Afrofuturism, telling these stories through the lens of a young black woman, and speaking of a future where we're included, we're not the minority, but we're the heroines, we're the leaders, we're the heroes, and that's how Cindy Mayweather even came to be, because I felt like there were not a lot of stories or concept albums that dealt with what it meant to feel like the other in society, and the android was a new form of the other. So I felt like I had a responsibility to that, to create a vision that we can look at, we can look at and be proud of and feel like we can be these magical beings, and that in the future it works out for us. You know, we're not an oppressed people. And, you know, in the future, we're not still trying to fight for women's rights. We don't feel like we're on the outskirt, you know, in the margins of society, in my world. So that was important. So the plan was to finish, you know, Metropolis, the Arcandroid and Electric Lady. And honestly, Annie, for the last few years, like, I really would have these conversations with myself. Okay, am I going to talk about Cindy Mayweather? Am I going to talk about Janelle Monae? Who's the subject here? And I really would sit there and have to ask myself those questions. And I think ultimately, you know, we know with this album, with Dirty Computer, which is more near future. It's not as far ahead in 2719. You know, it's down to, you know, gravity a little bit more. And I think that those of us who live in the future sometimes need to come back to the present and are needed in the present. And I just felt like my purpose was here. You know, I felt like I had something to contribute, whether it's accepted or not, whether people like it or not, because I was really, you know, kind of scared of what people would say about the music, or if they were going to be upset that they didn't get another Cindy Mayweather story. You know, I thought that they would jump off ship. But here I am. I've created what I like to think is a very honest and vulnerable body of work.
Why did you decide to put out Django Jane and Make Me Feel at the same time? What was it about those two records running parallel with each other?
I think that it was important to discuss, one, the response to the sting of feeling like my rights as a woman, not as Janelle Monae the artist, but as a young woman in America, young black woman in America, whose rights are constantly being trampled on. It was important for me to record this song to remind women of how we were as a matriarchal society before patriarchy existed, before it came and got fearful of the power when women got together and we conjured, you know, the magic that would happen. I wanted to remind us of ourselves, and also at the same time make it very clear where I stood on certain issues. You know, Django Jane is really about standing firm in my beliefs as a woman, and standing up for women and protecting women and celebrating women. And I thought that was important out the gate for people to understand that this is the lens that this album will be coming from. Yes, I'm upset, I'm angry at many of the things that I hear coming out of the mouths of people in the position of power. I'm tired of the abuse of power. I'm tired of so many fucking things. But at the end of the day, I do believe that we are on a shift change, and women are uniting. We're realizing that we're stronger together, we're more powerful together, that we really can get shit done when we are aligned. And so Django Jane was important to say that. With Make Me Feel, I thought balance was going to be important because, you know, Django Jane did come from a more assertive, aggressive delivery. There are some things I didn't filter myself. You know, there's profanity in it. I mean, I know people are probably like, well, why does she have to say that? But that's just how I feel. You know, it was more important to be honest versus playing into respectability politics with this music. And so Make Me Feel, I felt like was a good sister song because it's very celebratory. It's celebratory of women, of you know, people who are oftentimes silenced and dismissed because of their sexual orientation, because of where they come from. And I want to Make Me Feel to come from me and for people to understand that this album is also going to be a free expression for Janelle Monae, and that you know, as complex of a human being as I am, I'm having fun in that gray area. I'm having fun in defining who I am on my own terms, and not being afraid to put myself out on the line and explore and have conversations with myself in front of you. But it was more anthem and rally up, and then with Make Me Feel being a celebratory song. Yeah.
You say that you give a lot more about Janelle Monae on Django Jane especially. We learn about your parents, we learn about you more as a person. I'm really interested in what Janelle Monae was like as a young girl. What were you like? Were you shy? What were you like as a girl?
I mean, I guess like my mom and daddy would have to tell you, you know, lots of things. But I mean, I remember one story, my aunt taking me to church, a Baptist church, and she would go to church religiously, and she would take me with her, and we would listen to Michael Jackson in the car before church. So we were listening to all this secular music before we would go and worship in this Baptist congregation. And I just remember our pastor, Reverend Gray, preaching, and my aunt remembers this more than me, and so she told me that one time the pastor was preaching, he was getting all into it, and he was sweating, he was wiping his forehead, and people were falling out and passing out and feeling the Holy Ghost. And then out of nowhere, I go, just beat it, beat it, no one wants them to defeat it. I didn't know the words back then, but no one wants to be defeated. And the pastor laughed, and everybody in the congregation laughed. Like, it was just like one of those moments where, as a child, I just didn't play by the rules. I was like, I'm going to sing my secular songs in church. God is going to have to hear this. So I think maybe that says that I have my own way. I don't know, my own way of expressing myself and embracing what made me unique at an early age, even if it made others uncomfortable.
Last time we spoke about Prince. I'm really interested in how he has affected you as an artist. He strikes me as someone who has always kind of been consistently unconventional and kind of laughed in the face of what you should do as an artist. And always also someone who's just really 100% in control of their work. How has he affected you as an artist?
Well, Prince, you know, growing up, was always otherworldly to me, to a point where I was scared of him. When I would see his videos on TV, they would make me very scared. And mainly because I just had never seen a black man express himself in the way that Prince did. Yeah. He was so free. Yeah. And maybe it was because I was scared of myself. Maybe it was like something that I saw in him that I wasn't ready to tap into. And I think it's that freedom, you know, that I'm a free ass motherfucker. You know, you got that when you looked at him, when you listened to him. As I stated before, like it's kind of difficult for me to talk about Prince because I had a very close relationship with Prince. You know, he was on my last album. We did Giving Them What They Love together. And having his support and his belief and his confidence meant everything to me. You know, he would always let us know. He was a supporter of Wonderland and the music we were making, and he would just always say, if you need me, I'm here. You know, if you need any advice, I'm here. He's taken me on the road with him. I got the opportunity to share a stage with him. And I got the opportunity to watch firsthand someone really walk in their purpose and stay committed to excellence. He would just rehearse and rehearse, even at the stage that he was in. And I'm like, you're basically perfect. I've never heard you make a mistake or a bad note or hit a bad note on stage. And you still love this. You get he loved to make music and write music. And I think one of the most important things that I got from him, and the thing that sticks with me most is to, you know, really embrace your authenticity. You know, he never tried to encourage me to be like him or to write music like him. He never encouraged that at all. It was always, you have something special. I'm here if you need me. But you know, I love what it is that you do, and I cannot tell you what that means to have his support. I still feel his spirit all around. I still, you know, hear his laughter. He was a very funny person. Not a lot of people know that. And he was one of the first people that I gave my CD to when I did the Arcandroid. I remember us being at Paisley Park, and I wrote down the track listing, had a CD burnt, and I wrote a little flower on it, and I gave it to him. And he called me the next day, and you know, was really, really moved by the album. And so I think he's inspired the world, you know, and he'll continue to inspire the world through his music.
I'd like to ask you about the Me Too campaign, the Grammys, the speech that you made. I'm really interested in your thoughts on whether you think the campaign, and you know, you mentioned that there's a shift happening, whether you think it's changing, and is it changing enough for you?
I think that we are making progress. I'm very hopeful. I think that women are organizing. Me Too movement, Time's Up. I think that women are stepping into, you know, into their courage, into their confidence, into their magic, and we're doing it together. We're realizing again that we're stronger together, and that what happens to, you know, our fellow sister that we've never met could happen to us if we don't speak up and speak out and say something, and stand by one another. And so I was nervous yet eager to walk on the you know, Grammy stage and let a beloved industry that I'm a part of and that I respect so much know that this isn't just going on in Washington. It's not just a Hollywood issue, but the abuse of power is happening right here in our music industry. And we need to have some serious conversations. We need to have some systemic changes, some structural changes, you know, that really make sure that women are taken care of and that they feel protected and that they get the opportunities that are there, because it's not like we don't have the talent to be music producers or engineers or run record labels or, you know, to do any of these things, you know, from the bottom to the top to the bottom. It's the lack of opportunity. It's the lack of hiring. It's the lack of having women present in these rooms helping make these decisions. I mean, statistics already show that when women are in the position of power and they're running companies, sexual harassment goes down immensely, you know? And so I think that we really, you know, are going to have to have conversations, not just as women amongst us, but the men are going to have these conversations with us. They're going to have to ally up with us. They're going to have to check each other in these boys club rooms, you know. They're going to have to really stand up for us in ways that I don't think they have. And, you know, this is not to group all men together, because not everybody is the problem. Not every man is the problem. But one, you need to recognize the problem and be unafraid to check the problem. And also understand that women's rights are human rights. So this is a human rights issue.
Can I ask you about Black Panther, the film? The trailer for this new album was being shown before that, and I'm really interested in what you feel about that film as a cultural phenomenon.
I feel very thankful. I feel blessed, really, to be creating music and putting out an album during the same time as Black Panther. Putting out Django Jane and Make Me Feel during that same month, and having the trailer shown in select theaters before Black Panther meant the world to me. Not a lot of people know this, but Black Panther was filmed in Atlanta. So technically, I'm from Wakanda. So a lot of the cast are my friends, like Danielle and Lupita and Denai and Chadwick, and a lot of them came to Wonderland when I was making Dirty Computer.
Wow.
And I gave them a preview of the album. And they had been like on me, like, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? When is it coming out? And so, you know, knowing that they were making Black Panther and I was making Dirty Computer at the same time, it's special. It means something to me. Black Panther is through the lens of Afrofuturism. It's telling our stories in the future through our lens. And Dirty Computer is also telling our stories in the near future through the lens of a Black woman. And, you know, it just lets me know that the future can be bright for us. It doesn't have to, we don't have to be the stereotypical images on screen and in music that have been perpetuated for years and years and years. We get to define our world on our own terms. And that's what Ryan Coogler did. And that's what I'm going to do with this album.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel more and more like there's a responsibility to speak out about this kind of stuff for you? I mean, you've always done it in your art, but more and more recently, you know, you've been given more platforms where you can speak in real life as well. Do you feel that? Do you feel like
I have a responsibility?
Yeah.
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I feel like I can't save everybody. You know,
Yeah.
I just, you know, I'm gonna let people down. I'm not gonna be everything to everybody. I just can't do it. Mainly because I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the intel. I'm still trying to figure my own shit out and figure out the world and, you know, how do I contribute? Well, when is it time for me to be quiet? And, you know, when to sit back and let other things run its course and and understand that real change does not happen overnight. Real change does not. If you look throughout history, some things are just now getting solved. Some problems are just now being solved. And, you know, there's still the pain of dealing with them. And so I do feel a responsibility to be honest about, you know, certain topics and things going on, and to not, you know, sugarcoat what's at stake if we are not voting, if we are not, you know, making sure that we're not getting people in office that don't give a damn about women or women's rights or women's reproductive rights, that don't really care about the LGBTQ community, that don't care about poor people. You know, you do have to stand up for those who can't often stand up for themselves. So I do feel a responsibility to knock the hell out of the bully. I think that's my biggest responsibility.
Would you ever think about going into politics?
I've thought about it. I would say no. I don't think I could write a Django Jane or make me feel, or sit here in this interview and speak as candidly as I am to you if I were a politician. I think that there are certain rules that politicians have to play by, whether they like it or not. I think Barack Obama did a phenomenal job walking the tightrope, you know, in the White House. He really cared about the people, and so he tried as often as he could, he and Michelle both, to do as much as they could for us. And he had a lot of victories and a lot of setbacks. I'm sure he probably wanted to do more. But it's like two gang affiliations, you know, when you think about the White House. You know, you have the Republicans, the Democrats. You represent blue, you know, automatically people who represent red are just, they don't want to hear what you have to say. And I think that artists have a unique perspective because they get the opportunity to bring those groups together. You know, I'm more interested in creating a purple state than, you know, a red or a blue state. I'm interested in bringing us together, helping facilitate through music and through art and through conversations that we can have and come to a common, you know, ground on, and understanding that we're all in this together. I don't know how we got caught up in all the labels, but we're all in this together. And, you know, it's going to take egos being put to the side in order for us to make some real progress.
Janelle Monae, what's the plan for the next few years? And do you have one? I bet you do.
What's the plan for the next?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have to release the album. So April 27th, Dirty Computer is out worldwide. So I need to just get to that. Let me make it there first. I'm excited about touring.
Yeah.
I'm excited about creating an experience. I'm really excited about performing the songs. So let me get there.
Yeah.
And I have some other, little tricks up my sleeves that, I don't. And then I'm just excited about the growth that will happen. I'll make mistakes promoting the project, I'm sure, and performing it. And, some things won't go as planned. So I'm just, I'm eager to learn from my mistakes. Yeah. And become a more evolved person. Yeah. And I'm eager to meet people and give and, this is going to be their music. Yeah. I'm excited for the film to come out with the album. Yeah. I don't know if you know that, but Dirty Computer is also an emotion picture, which is, an album with a narrative driven a visual to accompany it. So that's really exciting. So I just want to make it there.
Okay.
One album, one tour, one visual at a time.
I mean, I think that's plenty.
Right?
I'm going to stop pressuring you for more.
No.
Janelle Monae, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much
for
your love.
Existing.
Thank you for you existing. You're a phenomenal woman, and I appreciate you, taking the time to talk to me. And whenever I come over here, I always feel at home, and mainly because of people like you. So thank you.